Hello friends and welcome to another week of Creo. This week I'm actually at 10th, but today we're going to show you behind the scenes of all the setups that we do for live stream and the stuff that happens here at 10th while everybody's away. Who do you think Jesus is? That question was asked of the disciples a long time ago. Jesus himself actually asked them, and there's two reasons why I think he asked them. One, I think he wanted to solidify what they already had guessed at. With all the miracles he performed, with all the wonders that they had seen, they still had a little bit of a hard time understanding who this Jesus really was. So he had to ask them directly. See, they weren't entirely sure if Jesus was the Messiah. They had an inkling. They saw the miracles, they saw the signs, but there was still some doubt in their hearts. And the only way that Jesus could deal with that doubt was basically expose it, bring it out in the open, show them what was going on, show them that he was who he said he was. Like we took a look last week, the miracles weren't there simply as a way of Jesus just doing things because he was a nice guy or because he was being merciful or simply because he could. They were really a sign of the truth that he was the Messiah. He was the fulfillment of all the promises and all the rituals and all the stuff that God had ordained way back at the beginning of creation. He was the promise of the plan that God started at the fall. Now, it had been many centuries, and the Jewish people, just like the disciples, had a hard time understanding what God was doing, who he was sending. They were expecting a different kind of person. They were expecting a warrior. And sometimes the way that you were raised changes your perception of how Jesus is really like. For example, the apostles were taught from an early age that this Messiah was supposed to be a great warrior, king, a rightful judge that would come and judge all the people and set everything right according to the law. The problem with that thinking is that the disciples grew up believing that Jesus or the Messiah was going to be a very angry and very stoic person, just like what the Pharisees were. Very proper and never flinching and always making sure that the laws were followed to the letter. A very hard person, a very by-the-book person. But that's not what Jesus was like. Jesus was completely different. This Messiah that they had seen was not what they were taught. Their perception was completely changed. And that's what Jesus had to do. He had to change their perception. He had to go in there and completely change what they thought the Messiah was going to be. That's one of the reasons why Jesus asked them that simple question. Who do you think I am? This is one of the most important questions that Jesus ever asked his disciples. And it's a question that he asks each and every one of us every single day. Do we believe that Jesus is who he is? Who do we think Jesus is? Now, Peter was the only one who was brave enough to actually say that Jesus was the Messiah, that he believed him, that he was all in. Now, it took a lot of guts for Peter to say that because everybody else was saying different things. Some said a prophet, others said it was John the Baptist or Elijah or one of the prophets. You can take a look at that in the scriptures. None of them dared to say, you're the Messiah. They may have thought it. They may have had it in the back of their heads, but they didn't specifically say it. It was only Peter who was brave enough to say, you are the Messiah. I believe who you are. I know who you are. And I believe that the reason that we have that question there is because you and I have to ask this question of ourselves a lot of the times, and we will continually ask this question even though we believe in Jesus. See, sometimes when life gets hard, you really wonder if God is who he said he was, if this Jesus is real. Is he the actual Messiah that God sent? Sometimes it's not as easy as simply showing up at church and believing. Sometimes it's difficult to know. And I think another reason that he kept this question in the scriptures is simply because he wants us to use our minds to understand that believing in Jesus doesn't simply mean believing without thinking. That you actually have to process and use your brain to understand it, to see the proofs, to see the scriptures in
dive into them and inspect them to make sure that what you're believing is accurate and true. God doesn't want you to simply believe because somebody told you, but He wants you to believe because you believe, because you know that you have come up to the point and to the decision that what you've seen, the evidence has pointed you to Jesus, and not simply out of mere emotionality or because somebody else told you. This month, we're talking about how Jesus was revealed, how the presence of God was revealed to the world. It was revealed through the presence of Jesus, to the actual very physical form of Jesus. One of the most important things that we have to remember and understand is that if we don't really get who this Jesus is, if we don't get to the point where we say to God, yes, I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, that He is your Son and He is here to save my sins, we don't really believe fully. We don't really understand what we believe. We may say we like the idea of being good, and we want to be moral people and we want to be good people, but that's not what God's interested in. He doesn't want you to just be a good person. He wants you to be His son and His daughter and part of His kingdom. That's why He sent Jesus, to make sure that we were able to enter into God's kingdom. So this week, as you're sitting in your cruise, I want you to think about this. I want you in your cruise to decide, is Jesus the Messiah or not? Who do you think Jesus is? I want you to answer that question for yourselves, in your hearts or out loud, but who do you think Jesus is? That's it for me this week, guys. I hope you have an awesome time at Cruise. It is the live stream next week. You don't want to miss it. We have a special guest, Darcy McAllister, is coming to bring the word. We're going to have some worship. We may have some shenanigans with the host. It's going to be fantastic. Hey, you know what? Invite your friends. Maybe they're bored and they want to see something funny. Put them on the stream. We love to have everybody in there. All right. Have an awesome week. We will see you next week.